This Christmas we're hosting your sister's fiancé. There won't be room for you and your daughter at the table, my mom said, like she was reading a grocery list, not cutting me out of the family. My sister followed with her perfect lawyer tone. But we still want you to pay for the dinner as always. And my dad. He added his favorite line, "Don't make us feel bad." I still want my gift. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there in my car staring at the empty booster seat in the back, the one with Luna's stickers of moons and stars, and realized I'd spent my whole life earning a seat at a table that was never meant for me. My name's Luke Endurance, and that moment broke something in me, but it also built something stronger. Before I share my story, I'd love to know you're here with me. Comment hi below or tell me where you're from. Sometimes just knowing someone's listening makes a story feel less lonely. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. If my story speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe, not for me, but for every person who's ever been told they didn't belong. Because no one deserves to be left standing while others sit down. The sky over Mission Ridge Medical Center looked like wet concrete, heavy and dull. I'd just finished a 14-hour shift, the kind that leaves your fingers smelling faintly of sanitizer and your head echoing with the steady beep of monitors long after you clock out. I sat in my car, the heater humming, staring at the booster seat behind me. Luna's seat still scattered with the moon and star stickers she'd placed there one morning before school. Her world was color and pattern. Mine was exhaustion and routine. My phone buzzed. A family group notification lit up the screen, Doran's family chat. I opened it out of habit. Mom. This Christmas we're hosting Ainsley's fiancé's family from Virginia. There won't be room for you and Luna at the dinner table. Ainsley. But we'd love for you to pay for the dinner as always. Dad. And don't make us feel bad. I still want my gift. That was it. 3 sentences. Each word neat, polite, efficient, like scalpels. No argument, no apology, just a quiet removal. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened as if the air itself decided to join their side. I imagined the table, long oak, shining with polished silverware, Ainsley at the head next to her fiancé. And somewhere in a back room, an extra folding chair, the one they never bothered to unfold for me. I could have replied, could have fired back, demanded decency. But Luna was probably home by now, coloring in her notebook, waiting for me to come through the door, smiling. I didn't want my anger to follow me there. So I set the phone face down on the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel until the tendons in my hands showed white. For 32 years, I'd done everything right. I worked double shifts. I helped pay for Dad's surgery. I handled every birthday, every Christmas menu. I was the son who kept the house functioning while my parents and sister performed the role of a perfect family. Hendersonville's Dorances, the people with the construction company, the country club, smiles, the holiday photos, where I always stood behind the camera instead of in front of it. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, steady, the kind that blurs the world into watercolor. I listened to it, hit the windshield, each drop a countdown. I could feel something inside me rearranging, a quiet movement like furniture being pushed in a dark room. I didn't respond to the messages. I didn't call. I turned off my phone completely, an act so small but so loud in its silence. The dashboard clock ticked past 7. Families streamed out of the hospital parking lot, kids waving drawings, parents holding coffee cups. I was just another man sitting alone in a car, deciding he was done being invisible. I looked once more at Luna's seat in the rearview mirror, the empty straps lying open. That image said everything. My daughter's chair, always ready, always waiting, just never invited to the table. I whispered to myself, this year, I won't stand in the kitchen. Then I started the engine. The headlights cut across the wet asphalt and caught the reflection of my hospital badge dangling from the mirror. It swung slowly like a pendulum, marking the end of one life and the start of another. The next evening, after Luna was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with a box of old receipts. The apartment smelled faintly of bleach and cinnamon, the 2 cents of survival. One by one, I laid the receipts across the table, forming a paper timeline of servitude. Grocery runs, catering bills, wine orders. Each year the numbers rose, each year the gratitude shrank. I remembered Ainsley's law school graduation, 50 guests, champagne flutes clinking, my mother's pearls glowing under the lights. I'd cooked all day, set everything just right. When dinner started, I stood in the kitchen beside Luna, balancing 2 plates on my arm like a waiter. There were 14 people in that house and 13 chairs at the table. I told myself it was an oversight. Back then, I still believed oversights were innocent. I remembered Dad's gallbladder surgery. I'd taken unpaid leave to drive him to appointments, handled the paperwork, stocked his fridge afterward. During recovery, he told a neighbor Ainsley came through for us again. I never corrected him. The Dorrance rule was simple: never make anyone uncomfortable with the truth. That rule was the real family heirloom silence. Every Christmas, I made the same shopping list emailed to Mom and Ainsley. They never asked what it cost. My credit card sat saved at the local gourmet market and the bakery in town. The owners knew me by name, not out of friendship, but because my family's reputation meant my card always cleared. I pulled out an old email chain from the previous year. Ainsley had forwarded the seating chart to a catering manager, accidentally copying me. Next to staff or kitchen, 2 names, Lucan and Luna. I deleted it back then, convincing myself it was a technical mistake. Tonight I opened it again, let the words burn their shape into me. This wasn't oversight. It was architecture built to keep us outside, polished to look polite. Luna's observation book sat near the table. She filled it with facts about insects, cloud shapes, and the way sound changed in large rooms. She once brought it to Christmas, tried to show Grandma the page about snow crystals. Grandma had called it her little performance book. Luna hadn't opened it in front of anyone since. The realization came slowly, like heat rising. They weren't just embarrassed by me, they were ashamed of her. Of the way she flapped her hands when she got excited, the way she repeated lines from her favorite documentaries. They wanted a family that looked perfect in photographs, not one that made people ask questions. I leaned back, the receipts still spread out before me, forming a pale river of evidence. My chest felt tight, but not from anger anymore, from clarity. For years I thought endurance was love. That if I stayed quiet long enough, if I kept giving, they'd finally see me. But silence doesn't earn respect, it feeds neglect. In my inbox, a notification popped up, a forwarded reminder from the same catering company. The subject line read, "Holiday order pending." Beneath it, a note Ainsley must have written months ago: "Keep Lucan and the kid off the main floor." The words cut differently now: clean, final. I took the box of receipts, poured them onto the table until the papers fanned out like a deck of years I no longer owed. My voice surprised me when it came out steady, low, certain. "That's enough," I said to the empty room. Then I turned off the kitchen light. The papers glowed faintly under the street lamp, seeping through the blinds, a trail of proof left behind like breadcrumbs for the man I used to be. I didn't need to follow them anymore. I knew exactly where they ended. Night shifts at the hospital always carry a strange kind of silence. The fluorescent lights hum low and every sound feels magnified: the shuffle of rubber soles, the sigh of the air vents, the click of distant doors. That night I was treating a boy who had fallen off his bike. His arm was in a temporary cast, his eyes glassy with unshed tears. "I'm scared," he said, his small voice trembling. "It's gonna hurt, isn't it?" I told him the truth. "Yeah," I said softly. "A little. But I'll help you through it." He nodded. Simple, direct, honest. It struck me how easy it was for a child to say what grown-ups never could. My family would rather fracture each other's hearts than admit fear. They never said we're afraid of losing face. Instead, they made me invisible, as if I were the cost of their comfort. During my break, I sat alone in the staff lounge with my laptop open. The cursor blinked on an empty search bar like a dare. I typed Christmas in New York City, then the Plaza Hotel holiday package, Woolman rink skating schedule, Broadway matinee family shows. I scrolled through pictures of glowing lights, window displays, people holding hands on Fifth Avenue. I calculated the cost down to the dollar. It matched almost exactly what I'd planned to spend on my family's gifts. That realization hit like a pulse of light. I could spend money trying to please people who'd never see me, or spend the same amount creating something beautiful for my daughter. For once, I wanted to feed memory, not ego. I thought of Luna. Of her quiet, steady voice one night in November when she asked Daddy, "When can I sit next to you at the big table?" I'd laughed awkwardly, told her maybe next year, the same lie I'd been telling myself for decades. Sitting there under the glow of the break room light, I finally whispered, "Next year starts now." The phone rang mid-thought. Mom. Her voice arrived clipped and brisk, all habit and control. "Lucan, can you send the shopping list like usual? You know, the one with the ingredients for the roast and all the desserts I'm not cooking this year," I said calmly. A pause, sharp, loaded. "Don't be ridiculous. You can handle the kitchen better than anyone." I said, "I'm not cooking." She inhaled sharply like I'd just confessed a crime. "You're making things difficult, Lucan. The Devereaux family is very traditional. They won't understand certain behaviors. You know how Virginia people are." I let the silence hang before answering. "I'm not making things difficult, Mom. I'm just not standing in the kitchen anymore." Her sigh came through the speaker like static. "You're going to regret this." I hung up before she could finish. For a few seconds, the world stood still. Then my phone buzzed again, but this time from someone unexpected. A text from my aunt in Pittsburgh. "Good for you, Lucan. Everyone knew they were taking advantage of you. Took you long enough to see it." I stared at her words. Everyone knew. That was the part that stuck. All these years, I'd thought I was being selfless, loyal, patient. But no, people saw me as the fool who couldn't tell the difference between love and servitude. I shut the laptop, stood up, and walked to the window. The city lights spread below like an open map of choices. I booked 2 Amtrak tickets to New York. Then I locked my spare credit card, the one my mother used for her grocery runs. The message wasn't loud, but it was final. When I got home, Luna was asleep, her observation book resting open on the table. I took a small note and wrote in block letters, "Christmas Adventure, New York." I slipped it inside the first page so she'd find it in the morning. Before bed, I opened our family chat, typed a message, and stared at the blinking cursor. Then I deleted every word, leaving the message blank. My silence would say what I never could: "I'm done being your convenience." 3 days before Christmas, the hospital was eerily calm. Fewer patients than usual, more time to think. I arrived early, grabbed coffee, and sat in the break room listening to the clock tick. 7 missed calls from Mom. A text from Ainsley. "Don't act like a victim." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my work calendar and started clearing out reminders, orders, deliveries, grocery lists. Every reservation I'd made for them over the years, I canceled. The bakery, the butcher, the florist. Finally, the big one, the prepaid turkey set at the gourmet store. The clerk on the other end sounded surprised. "Mr. Dorrance, you sure same order as last year, right? Not this year," I said. "They'll handle it themselves." When I hung up, I sat still for a moment. The quiet in my chest was strange, not emptiness exactly, more like air returning after being held too long. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. I walked to the parking lot before answering. Lucan, Mom said sharply, "How long do you plan to behave like a child? You're stressing Ainsley out." "I'm not behaving like anything. I just stopped doing your chores. You know who's coming, don't you?" "The Devereaux. They're old Virginia money. We can't embarrass ourselves." "No, Mom. What you mean is you can't look honest. You don't want them to see what kind of family we really are." Her breath caught. "You'll regret this." I ended the call before she could recover. Minutes later, a new message appeared from Dad. No words, just an audio file. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. His voice came first. "Don't seat him at the table. The kid's too loud." Ainsley's voice followed, perfectly steady. "I've already planned it. He'll cook, then leave." I listened twice, then 3 times. By the 4th, the shaking in my hands stopped. That was the sound of confirmation. Not misunderstanding, not poor planning. Intent. I could have sent it to the rest of the family, let them hear the truth for themselves. But I didn't. Instead, I saved it in a folder on my phone and opened a blank note. I typed, "Forgiving without confronting is just permission in disguise. I choose confrontation by walking away." That evening after my shift, I sat at the kitchen table again. The receipts were gone, the space felt open. I logged onto my bank account, booked our train tickets, and confirmed the plaza reservation. When the payment cleared, I stared at the confirmation screen until the glow blurred my eyes. It felt like signing divorce papers from a family I'd been married to out of guilt. I looked around the room, the same kitchen where I'd prepped hundreds of meals, the same counter where I'd chopped vegetables while they laughed in another room. Tonight the counters were spotless, the oven cold. The absence of noise was almost peaceful. I turned off the light. The room fell into darkness, but it didn't feel lonely. It felt finished. Standing there, I said it aloud, my voice low but certain. Let them cook for themselves. Then I walked out, leaving the kitchen to the silence it had earned. The morning of December 23rd came draped in fog. Frost clung to the shingles like a whisper that wouldn't leave. Inside our small Asheville house, Luna sat cross-legged on the living room floor, sorting her things with surgical precision. Red dress checked. Mittens checked, she murmured, marking each item in her observation book. I folded shirts, rolled, sweaters smelled the faint trace of baby lotion that still lingered in the air. It struck me how peaceful everything felt, like the house itself was exhaling after years of holding its breath. The phone rang just as I locked the door. Mom. Her voice cracked through the cold morning like the snap of ice. Lucan, don't do this. Your father's furious. Ainsley's been crying all night. You're tearing the family apart. I balanced the phone between my shoulder and ear while setting the suitcases in the car. Mom, I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm taking my daughter on a trip, that's all. You can't humiliate us in front of the Devereaux, she snapped. I closed the trunk slowly. I can't let my daughter be humiliated in front of her own family. For a moment there was only breathing on the other end, hers shallow and sharp, mine steady. Then the line went dead. I stood there with the phone in my hand, the fog curling around me like smoke, and realized something simple but monumental: silence could be louder than shouting. When I got back inside to grab Luna's stuffed rabbit, another message flashed across my screen. It was from Dad. If you walk out on this family during Christmas, don't bother coming back. I read it once, twice, 3 times, then deleted it. Not out of defiance, out of understanding. For the first time, I didn't feel the weight of his words. The absence of fear felt almost like relief. I didn't owe my return to anyone. As I zipped up Luna's coat, my phone buzzed again, this time a text from my cousin in Texas. Uncle Gerald told everyone you're just a low-level medical assistant. They found out you're head nurse now. Guess that lie won't hold much longer. Keep going. Don't look back. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. For years, I'd believed my parents' version of me was the only one that mattered. But other people had seen it too, their lies, their control. They'd all known, and I'd been the last to wake up. Something in me settled. I opened my social media account, typed one sentence, and hit post. If there's no room for us at their table, Luna and I will build our own. Within seconds, the phone buzzed again. Calls, messages, even from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't pick up. The sound of the notifications was like rain hitting a roof, far away, present, but no longer reaching me. Luna appeared in the doorway, her small hand clutching her sketchbook. Daddy, did we forget presents for Grandma and Grandpa? I smiled. No, sweetheart. They already have their present. What is it? She asked, tilting her head. Our silence, I said softly. It's the only gift they've ever refused to give us. We stepped outside. The air bit at our cheeks, crisp and electric. As I drove toward the train station, the rearview mirror caught the house fading behind us, its windows still dark. For the first time in my life, leaving didn't feel like running away. It felt like walking towards something I finally chose. The train pulled out of Asheville at sunrise, its whistle echoing across the Blue Ridge Mountains. Luna pressed her forehead to the window, watching the frost sparkle on the fields like crushed glass. I leaned back against the seat, the hum of the tracks steady beneath us. My phone lit up 20 missed calls, 34 messages, each one a tether trying to pull me back. I didn't open a single one. Halfway through the ride, while Luna sketched the landscape in her book, the voicemail icon blinked. I put the phone to my ear. The first voice was Mom's, high and trembling. "Lucan, we can't find the shopping list. What brand of butter did you use last year? The stores are out of half the ingredients." Then Dad's voice broke in. "Who's supposed to cook now? You think these things make themselves?" And Ainsley's tight and panicked. "I told David's parents you were the caterer. They're asking why you're not here." I let the phone rest on my knee and laughed softly, not out of mockery but revelation. They had built a world on my compliance, and the moment I stepped out, the whole structure crumbled. The lies they told about me about Luna were catching up faster than any train could move. As the tracks curved north, a man in his 50s took the seat beside me. He had kind eyes and the tired posture of someone who'd carried a long story. We exchanged small talk until he noticed Luna's drawings. "She's got a good eye," he said. "My son's on the spectrum, too. Smartest kid I know. The world just doesn't always know how to meet them where they are." His words landed in me like warmth. I nodded. People see difference as disorder. But she's not broken. She's just tuned to another frequency. He smiled, the kind that comes from recognition. "Exactly. It's not the children that need fixing, it's how we look at them." When he left at the next stop, I stared out the window, the scenery sliding by in streaks of silver and pine. For the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider. Somewhere out there were people who understood. Luna looked up from her drawing. "Daddy, look." She held out her sketchbook. Two stick figures sat at a small round table, hands touching over plates of cookies. Above it, she had written, "Our table." My throat tightened. That picture was everything we'd lost and everything we'd reclaimed. I brushed her hair back and whispered, "It's perfect." The train slowed near Washington, D.C., the sun breaking through clouds. My phone rang again. "Mom." I hesitated, then answered. "Lucan," she said quietly. "At least send the shopping list. I can't keep track of everything." I couldn't help but laugh. "You'll figure it out, Mom. You always do." She went silent. Then in a voice I barely recognized, she said, "You sound different." "I am," I said, "because I'm not afraid anymore." We stayed on the line for a few seconds, the rhythm of the train filling the spaces where words used to live. When she finally hung up, I felt something shift. Not reconciliation, just release. As the train crossed the Potomac, I watched the water flash beneath us like a moving mirror. I took Luna's observation book and wrote on the inside cover, "We weren't abandoned. We're the ones leaving." By the time we reached Penn Station, the city was already alive, steam rising from the greats' taxis, honking Christmas lights flickering through the morning fog. I squeezed Luna's hand and smiled. "We're here, sweetheart." She looked up, her eyes wide. "So, this is where our new table is?" "Yes," I said. "And it's big enough for both of us." Outside New York opened around us, loud and alive. Somewhere far behind, in a kitchen full of smoke and chaos, the people who'd once called me family were realizing what it meant to lose the person who'd kept them together. But I didn't think about them anymore. As we stepped onto the platform, the cold air hit my face sharp and clean. For the first time in years, every breath felt like my own. Luna and I arrived at the plaza in the soft gold of Christmas Eve afternoon. The revolving door spun us into a world of polished marble chandeliers and the faint scent of pine and pastry. For a moment I just stood there, taking in the sight of her reflection on the glass, her small smile, her mittened hands clutching the teddy bear a bellhop had just given her. It felt like stepping into a painting that had waited years for us to finally walk into it. Our suite on the 12th floor looked out over Central Park, powdered with snow and faintly glowing beneath the fading light. I pulled the curtains wide. "Look, sweetheart," I said. "It's like the world's wrapped up in silver." She pressed her nose against the window, eyes wide. "It's so quiet, Daddy." "I've never had a Christmas this peaceful," I admitted. No one's ordering, no one's judging, just us and the sound of our own breathing. We spent the afternoon drinking hot chocolate, sharing cookies still warm from room service. From the window, we watched the horse-drawn carriages circling the park, their bells ringing against the hum of the city. Every sound felt cleaner here, less like noise, more like music. As the first flakes began to fall again, Luna looked up at me. "Daddy, is this our new table?" I smiled, setting my cup down. "Yes, baby. And this time, no one can tell us we don't belong." The phone buzzed as I poured another cup of cocoa. A message from a cousin back in Hendersonville. "Ainsley burned the turkey. David's parents left early. Your mom's crying. Your dad ordered pizza. The whole dinner's a disaster." Attached was a photo, the once perfect table now strewn with half-carved meat and spilled wine, my mother's head buried in her hands. I stared at the image until the absurdity of it became beautiful. Justice didn't need noise. Sometimes it arrived disguised as chaos. That night, as Luna brushed her hair in front of the mirror, my phone rang again. Ainsley. I was about to ignore it, but Luna whispered, "Maybe she needs to tell the truth." So I answered. Her voice was small, shaky, stripped of its usual sharpness. "Lucan, I was wrong." I said nothing. The dinner was a mess. David's parents asked where you were. I tried to lie, but I couldn't keep it together. I told them you weren't a caterer, that you'd just been treated like one. She paused, her breathing uneven. David's father, he's a lawyer who helps families with special needs kids. He told me that what we did to Luna was cruel. I've never been so ashamed in my life. I leaned against the window, watching snow blur the city lights. "Are you calling for forgiveness?" I asked. "No," she said quickly. "I just want you to know. I see it now. And I swear I'll never teach my children the way we were taught." There was nothing more to say. I hung up, feeling neither relief nor rage, just the strange stillness that comes after a wound is finally cleaned. A few hours later, Luna tugged my hand. "Come outside, Daddy." We stepped onto the balcony. Snow drifted past in slow, glittering spirals. The city below was quiet except for the distant hum of carols echoing from Fifth Avenue. She looked up at me, eyes shining. "I think Christmas is when you're not scared anymore." I felt my throat tighten. "You might be right, sweetheart." I'd always thought Christmas was about reunion families crowding around a table pretending everything was fine. But maybe it was simpler. Maybe it was about choosing the people who make you feel safe, even if that's just two people in the whole world. As midnight neared, I stood by the window watching the reflection of Rockefeller Center's lights shimmer against the glass. The city pulsed with life, but our suite was still. "I didn't lose my family," I whispered. "I just left a table that never had a seat for me." And in that silence, I finally understood sometimes not speaking isn't surrender. It's the only way to make others hear the sound of their own conscience. Spring arrived softly, like forgiveness you didn't ask for. 3 months after that night, Luna and I moved to Seattle. My new job at Northwest Children's Hospital filled my days, but not in the draining way the old ones used to. Our apartment overlooked Lake Union, and every morning the fog lifted just enough to let sunlight spill through the blinds. Luna had started at a new school. She still carried her observation book, but on the first page she'd written in block letters, "My dad laughs more now." I read it one evening and just sat there smiling at the quiet truth of it. I never planned to leave Asheville, I narrated to myself one night while unpacking boxes. But some places only belong to the version of us we've outgrown. When you change, the doors behind you close on their own. The letters from home began arriving not long after. Dad's apology came first, short, awkward, typed in all caps like he was afraid of lowercase vulnerability. Then Mom's, written in cursive, softer. "I miss my granddaughter." And finally Ainsley's, she wanted me to give a toast at her wedding, said it would mean the world. I didn't say yes, I didn't say no. I just mailed a card back, "Wishing you happiness. Teach your children kindness sooner than we learned it." That was enough. I didn't need apologies dressed as invitations. What I needed was space. One evening, as rain whispered against the windows, Mom called. Her voice trembled. "Lucan, do you know your father cried that Christmas he thought you'd come back?" I paused before answering. "Mom, I did come back, just not to that house." She didn't respond. When she finally hung up, I realized she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was just learning how to live without my silence to fill her guilt, and that too was progress. Weeks later, Luna and I walked by the lake, the sky low and pale. She slipped her hand into mine. "Daddy, where's our home now?" I looked across the water, the ripples catching light. "Right here," I said. "Home is anywhere there's room for both of us." The words felt final, like the closing of a loop that started in a cold parking lot months before. The table we'd built had become a home. That night, Luna showed me her latest drawing, the last page of her observation book. Two people sat at a small round table, hands joined. Beneath it, she'd written, "Maybe one day Grandma will join." I traced the words with my finger. "That's a beautiful thought," I said. "Do you think she will?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "But we don't have to wait for that to be happy." When she went to bed, I stood by the kitchen window watching the lights across the lake shimmer through the rain. I realized the story had never been about vengeance. It was about proof that Luna and I were whole all along, even when others couldn't see it. The truth settled gently inside me. Value isn't granted by the ones who exclude you. It's chosen by the ones who stay. Later, Luna padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, hair messy, eyes sleepy. "Daddy, can we make pancakes?" We mixed batter, flipped cakes, and filled mugs with cocoa. Jazz played softly from the radio, filling the quiet with warmth. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the room in soft gold. I looked at her across the table and said, "You know, after that Christmas at the plaza, every other meal is just decoration." She laughed, a small, bubbling sound that made everything else fade away. And as I watched her grin over her stack of pancakes, I thought, sometimes victory isn't making them regret losing you. It's living a life so full they can no longer touch it. That was our real inheritance, not silence, not pain, but peace. When I look back on everything that happened, the messages, the silence, the train rides, the long nights of doubt, I realize something I never understood when I was still trying to earn my family's approval. Sometimes the most radical act of love is walking away. Not out of hate, not out of revenge, but out of a desperate need to protect the small, beautiful things that still believe in you. For me, that was Luna. Every time I looked at her, I saw the version of myself I'd almost forgotten, someone honest, kind, still capable of wonder. She reminded me that family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who make space for your heart. I used to think love was about endurance, keeping quiet, holding steady, forgiving endlessly. I thought if I worked hard enough, cooked every meal, paid every bill, covered every mistake, one day they'd see my worth. But now I know silence doesn't make people love you more. It only teaches them that your pain is convenient. And when you finally stop being useful, they'll call your absence betrayal instead of survival. That's why I stopped apologizing for leaving. Because leaving isn't abandonment, it's reclamation. Christmas at the plaza wasn't about luxury or defiance. It was about peace. It was about telling my daughter, you belong in every room you walk into. It was about showing her that our table, even if it's just for two, is still enough. We didn't need applause, forgiveness, or validation. What we needed was freedom from pretending we were loved when we were only being tolerated. To anyone who's ever been made to feel small at their own family table, I want you to know this. Your worth isn't determined by who chooses to see it. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's version of belonging. Sometimes you have to build your own table out of courage, out of truth, out of whatever scraps of faith you still have left. It won't look perfect at first. It won't have fine silverware or crystal glasses, but it will be yours. And when you sit down at it, the air will finally feel like home. If you've ever had to walk away from a family, a job, or a friendship that only valued you for what you could give, this story is for you. Maybe you didn't get the apology you deserved. Maybe you never will. But you can still choose peace. You can still choose yourself. You can still create a life so full of light that their darkness can't touch it. Luna once asked me, "Daddy, will they ever say, 'Sorry, I told her the truth'?" Maybe. But that's not what makes us okay. We're okay because we didn't let their silence teach us to stop speaking. If you've ever been in my shoes, standing outside a room where laughter is happening without you, I hope you remember this: being uninvited doesn't mean you don't belong anywhere. It just means your place is waiting somewhere else. Before you go, I'd love to know you're here with me. Drop a hi in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes even the smallest acknowledgement reminds me that stories like mine don't end in isolation, they grow into community. If this story spoke to you, don't forget to subscribe. Not for me, but for everyone who's ever been told they were too much, too quiet, too different. This space is for you, for the ones rebuilding after rejection, for those learning that being alone can also mean being free. Because no matter how your family, friends, or the world has made you feel, you deserve a seat. You deserve warmth. You deserve to laugh without permission. You deserve a table where love doesn't come with conditions. And if no one has told you lately, you are enough exactly as you are.